If you are struggling with pornography, I need you to hear something that is going to sound wrong. Pornography is not actually what you're addicted to. There is a deeper process running underneath the addiction that the pornography is just the loudest symptom of. And until you turn your attention to start fighting that, you're never going to break free, no matter how hard you try. If you're new here, my name is Nate O'Neill. I'm a former NASA rocket scientist, and I specialize in helping people to overcome this problem and to reclaim their lives. Now, I know that sounds like a bold claim, absurd even, that pornography is not actually what you're addicted to. But I promise you that by the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly what this deeper process is that is driving the pornography addiction, how it's been running your life in ways that go far deeper and far wider than just pornography, and why defining it properly and seeing it the right way can change everything in terms of how you find freedom from this problem. So let's start with what's actually been happening. Every single man that I have ever met, myself included, starts out and builds their entire recovery journey from this problem around a central idea that is wrong. And that idea is porn is my problem. So I just need to stop watching porn, right? Like that's obviously the solution to a pornography addiction, right? Like I just need to stop watching porn. The problem is that they're diagnosing a symptom as the root cause of the problem. It's an operating assumption for their strategy that is actually fundamentally incorrect. And then all of their efforts flow from it. All of the willpower attempts to try to resist the urge, all of the blockers that they eventually find ways around. The cold showers, the exercise, the push-ups, the apps, the streaks, the white knuckling, the promises to yourself at 2 a.m. that this was the last time, like you said last time, and the time before that, and the time before that. And don't worry, I'm only throwing shade here because I've been there. And some of these attempts might actually work for a while. Then you suddenly find yourself mysteriously and bafflingly right back at day one. The cycle starts over, you muster up the willpower again, you embark on this journey once more, operating on this assumption that the problem is pornography and the solution is to get it out of your life. And every time the cycle plays over again, the shame gets worse. Self-trust erodes a little more. The voice in your head gets louder. What is wrong with me? But the reason why you cannot stay away from this, the reason why abstinence doesn't stick, is not because you're weak, and it's not because you lack discipline. It is, like I've said, because you're actually treating the wrong problem. You have misdiagnosed what this problem is, and your strategy is what is broken, not you. You see, in this car that is driving itself off the cliff, pornography is not actually the driver. It is just the screaming passenger. And so that begs the question now, who's driving? The best definition for this driver that I've ever come across comes from the 12-step sexual addiction recovery group called Sexaholics Anonymous. They call this deeper addictive drive lust. Now, before you check out on me because of that word, I need you to hear what I actually mean by it. I'm not using this word religiously. I'm using it in the same way that I might use the word shame or fear or codependency. It's simply the most accurate word in the English language to describe a very real human universal experience. And lust is not strong sexual attraction for somebody. It is not sexual desire. Let me make that painfully clear. Lust is, strangely enough, not even necessarily sexual. You can lust after many things like money, food, fame, power, or validation. And none of these are inherently sexual things. So what is lust then? The essay definition is this: lust is an attitude demanding that a natural instinct serve an unnatural desire. Now let me unpack that, because this is the whole thing. You have natural, legitimate desires and drives. The desire to eat, the desire for sex, the desire for connection, for affirmation, for affection. These are all good things. They are built into you for a purpose, and each of them is capable of meeting the need that it was designed to meet. Your hunger is capable of satisfying your need for nutrition. Your sexuality is capable of satisfying your desire and your deeper needs for sexual expression and for deep, intimate connection with another person. But and this is the critical part, your hunger cannot cure other problems. Your hunger cannot cure anxiety. Neither can your sexuality. Your sexuality cannot cure your self-hatred. Your desire for validation or affection cannot fill the void of never feeling like you were good enough. These drives were never built to solve these problems. Like, they literally do not have the capacity. But they do have an important overlap, which is that they can numb the pain of not being able to resolve that problem. Lust is what happens when you feel that gnawing craving right before bed that is telling you, in order to release the stress of today, I have to do this. Lust is what happens when you feel the pull and the urge to use orgasm as a way to deal with the shame or the pain of loneliness. Lust is when you take this natural desire, this natural drive, and you use it, you demand that it fix something else it was never designed to fix. You use it to cope with the pain of an unmet, deeper need. Now, it's really important to understand here, as we're saying this, that the opposite of lust, its cure, if you will, is not willpower. And hopefully now, as we're starting to transition into this conversation about lust, something is kind of clicking in your head around like, oh yeah, no duh. Willpower is not the solution to lust. Lust is not a willpower deficiency. It is a process of using a natural drive that we have to deal with or cope with or numb or escape emotional distress, discomfort, or the pain of unmet needs. Well, what is the opposite of lust then? Well, I want to talk to you about something important first, which is the orientation of lust. Lust is characterized by being the energy of taking. Lust is when we want to take something from outside of ourselves to fill what we feel is lacking within. Lust is looking externally for a hit, a fix, a feeling to fill and deal with what is going on inside of us. Lust is when selfishness and self-centeredness take control of our sexuality and use it to take from others to fill what we feel is lacking within. That is my definition for lust. And so what is the opposite orientation? The opposite of lust, you see, is then the opposite of this attitude and orientation of taking, which is love. Lust is always reaching for something external to deal with an internal problem. And the result is always the same. The best that lust can do is temporary numbing, followed by guilt, shame, and followed by the void returning deeper than it was before. And you can feel that. I know that you know this. Lust has a strange quality to it. It's like a dog licking a festering wound. Instead of the wound getting healed by all of the licking, every single time the dog does this, it makes the wound worse. This is that sick, hollow feeling that you feel after watching porn. This is what we are left with after lust runs its full cycle. You took from something that was never going to satisfy you, and now you have the original pain plus the shame and the emptiness of what you just did. You have the additional cost incurred by what lust has now taken from you too. Now, if you're struggling with pornography, you have developed, like me, an addictive relationship with lust. We are addicted to the rush that it provides, the soothing from the spike of dopamine and reward neurotransmitters that sexual lust provides. We are looking for the temporary numbing of pain or emotional discomfort, the temporary relief from stress and overwhelm or boredom that it is capable of providing. But pornography is just the primary manifestation of this. It is not the only one, I promise you, not even close. So what does lust actually look like beyond a screen then? Because this is where I promise you this conversation starts to get a little bit more interesting, where you can see lust operating in your life at a bigger scale. In my own life, lust is what tells me that a woman can be reduced to an object whose sole purpose is to gratify me sexually. Whether that's a porn actress or a girl that I walked past in the gym, whose body my eyes locked onto, and whose humanity I barely even registered. Lust is what takes an incredibly beautiful human being in front of me and reduces them to a catalog, a collection of body parts that I am looking at and using internally almost as a little drug. Like I look and I take a hit and oof, it gave me something inside of me. That is lust. Lust is what tells you that you need release and relief right now, and that you need it regardless of the form that it comes in and regardless of what it costs you or somebody else. The motto of lust is what I want, when I want it, how I want it, regardless of the consequences. Lust is what tells you to pursue someone despite obvious red flags, to push forward despite your own boundaries, and despite knowing in your gut that it is wrong, just for the sake of sex, affection, or intimacy, or validation. Lust is the energy that pedestalizes a woman, that tells you the story that if you can just get into the right relationship, if you can just get that girl's validation, then everything would finally be okay. Then you'd finally feel okay. You'd finally be a version of you that you can finally give yourself permission to like. This is how lust shows up in other parts of our life. And now that I've said that, I hope you can look back and see that the pornography website, the screen that you are looking at, is just the factory. It's just the training ground for lust. It's its primary manifestation where we go to practice it, and then it leaks out into every other area of our life. And this is why you keep relapsing. You are fighting one manifestation of a problem that has dozens of manifestations everywhere. You're locking the front door while lust is just creeping in the windows and other places. And this is again why willpower will never solve this problem. You are not fighting a behavior. The solution to this problem is not to stop a behavior. It is to dismantle a drive that is fueling all sorts of behaviors. You are trying to rewire a deep, reflexive pattern of emotional self-soothing that involves taking from the outside world to fill what you feel is missing within you. Willpower might be able to resist the drive temporarily and to suppress its outputs, but it cannot and will not ever be able to dismantle the drive itself. Real recovery, the kind where men actually break free, requires a focus on lust as the central drive of the problem. It involves committing to a pathway of progressive victory over lust in all areas of our life, to change this orientation inside of ourselves spiritually from one of taking from everybody and everything outside of us to fill what we feel is lacking within, and instead to reverse the flow, so that instead of being a kind of black hole person who is constantly oriented towards taking, objectification, and using things for selfish internal purposes, that I instead become somebody who's oriented towards love, where my orientation is now one of giving, of pouring out into the world, maybe not for me, maybe even in spite of me. The real work is about diving into the roots and finding out what lust is helping us to deal with in the first place, so that we can become somebody whose primary orientation in life is one of giving, not of taking. And I want to say here, it's really important, the men who do this work, they do not lose their sexuality. Healing from lust is not the same thing as repressing your sexuality. I cannot emphasize that point enough. You are not here to lose anything, actually. You are here to gain something. The men who do this work gain their sexuality back, integrated back into their life as a healthy element. They come to know themselves as whole people, no longer compartmentalized, where their sexuality is oriented in alignment with actual sexual desires rather than compulsive emotional soothing. They finally get to meet who they are in their sexuality for the first time. If you watch this and you recognized yourself, not just in the porn use perhaps, but also in the patterns, in the way you relate to women, in the way that taking energy has been running your life, that recognition matters. Many men never even get there. But I need you to understand something very important. Recognition and self-awareness are not the solution to this problem either. Self-awareness alone will not produce the change that you are looking for. And I know that because I spent over a decade of my life painfully self-aware of what was going on and still struggling in active addiction. If you want help dismantling this problem at the root from somebody who has walked this path before and who has helped dozens of other people do the same, and you can check my testimonials if you would like proof on that. Click on the link in the description below and book a call with me. We'll talk deeper about what is actually going on and what a pathway of breaking free from this forever looks like. I hope you got some value out of this video. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.